and welcome to today's webinar hosted by Digit, Mind the Skills Gap, Aligning HR and L&D Skills Development Strategies. I'm Catherine Newbury and I'm Head of Content here at Digit. I'm joined today by my colleague Andrea Matkin, who's Head of LMS Sales, and Bradley Burgoyne, who's Head of Talent here at Cypher Group. Welcome, Andrea and Bradley. Well, it's great to have you with us today.
Thanks, Catherine. Hi, everyone.
Especially for such a hot topic today, Bradley. You were just saying that to us offline that this is something that you're dealing with day to day in your role here at Cypher Group.
Absolutely, and I think every peer in my role is dealing with the same challenge. So really looking forward to going through this webinar today.
Okay, fantastic. So if you're new to Digits, a little bit about us to begin with. Digits is a digital learning provider of LMS and bespoke learning content, with more than 3 decades of experience in the industry. Our award-winning LMS, Digits LMS, is used by household names such as B&Q and Kia, and we also create bespoke learning content for a range of clients. Digits became part of the Cypher Group in 2020. Here's our agenda for today. We'll look at how L&D strategies are changing, 6 reasons for HR and L&D professionals to work together. I'm conscious that we have a mix of HR and L&D professionals on the call today, so it's great to have you all with us. We'll also look at technology's role in synchronizing HR and L&D strategies, and asking, can your LMS help you deliver a strong people strategy? Finally, at the end, Andrea and Bradley will be taking your questions. So if you have any questions for them, please send them in using the control panel that you'll see on your screen. This webinar is being recorded and the recording will be sent to you automatically. This webinar marks the launch of a new report from Digits with the same title, Mind the Skills Gap. You can download that from the webinar control panel right now, or you can go to the landing page on our website, which is at bit.ly/digitskills. It's packed full of expert insight and it will dive into the themes that we talk about today in a bit more detail. So do take a look at that and download your copy. Before I hand over to Bradley and Andrea, I just want to kick us off with a poll today. So what's the status of your skills strategy? Would you say that technology is essential to delivering your skills strategy? You'd like to make greater use of technology to deliver your skills strategy. Perhaps you have a skills strategy, but technology doesn't play a role yet in it. Perhaps you started creating a skills strategy, but haven't implemented it fully, or you don't have a formal skills strategy at all. So, Bradley, we talked about how skills is at the front of everyone's mind at the moment. From your experience talking to peers, sort of where are organisations tending to be at in these kind of points that we're talking about here?
I think having attended lots of the learning technology forums recently, many of the conversations we were having was people are at the point where they don't necessarily have the technology or the tool to support them. They have the plan and the strategy in terms of where they want to take it, and they're now looking at what tools are out there to support me in building and delivering my skills strategy. So many organizations have the plan, but they don't necessarily have the complementing tool to enable them to deliver it.
Okay, fair enough. So we're going to share the results now. So 30% of you joining us today said that technology is essential to delivering your skills strategy. So it's great to see that so many of you are sort of at the vanguard of using technology. 20% would like to make greater use of technology to deliver their skills strategy. And around a third actually don't have a formal skills strategy at all. So there's a few of you that have some work to do probably in the coming months as we kind of start to address those skills gaps that we're seeing within organisations. So that's all really interesting stuff. I am going to hand over to Bradley now to take us through the first portion of our presentation, looking at how L&D strategies are changing.
Thank you, Catherine. So yeah, let's start with that question of how are L&D strategies changing, and I guess to get a clearer picture on where L&D is heading, let's just take a quick look at the current state of kind of workplace training as it exists today. So Lee's statistics that you see up here on screen, they'll give you a good sense of the L&D industry today and the extent to which our hard work in this space is paying off. So let's start with that first one there. So over 40% of workers seriously considering leaving their jobs in the following 6 to 12 months. That's reported by Microsoft in their 2021 Work Trend Index, and a trend that I'm sure most employers have felt as we've gone into 2022. reporting on skills vacancies in the financial services sector, a 2022 Financial Services Skills Commission report found that it can cost up to £50,000 more to fill a vacancy than to upskill and retain an existing employee. At a time where all costs are rising, not just for businesses, but for personally, that's money that you can ill afford to spend. Meanwhile, there's evidence that training isn't being made available to all workers of all demographics. So a third of over 55s have not had any formal workplace training in the last 10 years. According to a study, that was a recent study last year by City and Guilds Group. So I guess if we was to take these stats as a whole, they kind of suggest that the answer to our question in terms of how much is our hard work paying off is a bit of a resounding no, really, because training strategies on this evidence are just not working. And I guess what we'd like to explore is kind of why is that, and what's causing that underlying issue there. So that would differ from organisation to organisation, I guess, but some common causes could be insufficient training opportunities for colleagues. I guess the over 55s category there in this survey evidences that. We all know that we have certain vacancies that are hard to fill, which puts pressure on hiring teams, and therefore, we're providing limited voluntary L&D opportunities. The effects of decades of limited, or in some cases non-existent training. We know through these tough times that budget restrictions can kick in, and also time restrictions as there's more pressure put on colleagues across the organisation, and I guess and much more. So with nearly half the workforce contemplating their resignation and another half having missed out on a decade worth of training, and the cost of filling vacancies now more than double the annual living wage in London, which is £23,300 as of September, it's the perfect storm for a major skills deficit unless we act now. So plainly put, I guess the answer is our strategy working? Plainly put, no. Existing training strategies are not working, and L&D plans that don't involve some element of skills development are just not going to cut it in the current economic climate, labour market, or in the skills market as we move forward. So that's, I guess, a little bit of where we are today. And that's why we've seen real kind of, I guess, savvy switched on organizations switch their L&D focus from kind of the must-dos of health and safety and compliance to offering real value added learning activities that give employees the opportunity to grow and develop without having to go out and always find new employees for those gaps that open up, those job vacancies that open up. And organizations are looking beyond just the mandatory and compliance training, which is always going to be needed, but organizations are looking beyond that as to how they can improve the employee experience, creating, I guess, a real pull towards learning by offering relevant training and meaningful career development opportunities is where those real opportunities lie as we move forward. And creating a culture of learning is the foundation of talent retention. A study released earlier this year by LinkedIn found that 72% of organizations are currently focused on skills development, and a further 45% said they wanted to focus on leadership and management training. In fact, research into skills in the workplace carried out by Digits in 2022 revealed that leadership is one of the most important skills for managers to possess. So while there's a big focus and needed on upskilling, soft skills development remains a crucial part of L&D. So where does that focus on skills come from though, and what's driving this? So skills development has the power to completely transform L&D, but it's hard, it's not easy. A robust workplace training program that incorporates skills development can have multiple benefits. So you can see them up here on the screen in terms of it creates internal career development opportunities which really helps you retain the top talent within your organization and saves the cost of hiring and training new workers, whilst keeping you competitive in a very, very volatile labour market that we experience today and is going to be with us for the foreseeable future. It means that we can attract skill seekers, so workers who are actively looking to work in organisations where their professional development is prioritised and valued, will be attracted to organisations that have a robust learning curriculum, and they put that at the core of their strategy. So this type of employee can be absolutely invaluable, constantly looking to upskill, constantly looking to develop. And, you know, we all want that type of person working within our team, someone who's always looking to push themselves. A great workplace culture can be hard to cultivate. LinkedIn's Workplace Learning Report of 2022 cited that opportunities to learn and grow as the #1 driver for a great workplace culture. So it really is important to colleagues across various organizations. It seems almost too good to be true, really. Is it really that easy to attract and retain top talent and create a great work environment? All we need to do is offer skills development. But there are some notable challenges L&D teams face. And if we can tackle those, a robust skills strategy can become all the more achievable. So let's look at some of those challenges that we may well face. So, I guess, hiring strategies have been forced to shift to more of a focus on retention. That was very much prompted by the Great Resignation. As more and more workers leave their current roles, HR teams are forced to prioritise filling vacancies, a very reactive approach to the ongoing issue. Rather than kind of let's delve into why are these people leaving and what can be done to keep them on board. More money is one option, but as I'm sure as many of us are experiencing, that's not sustainable in the long term. We can't just keep increasing base salaries or bonuses. Another far more viable option is to offer skills development opportunities. How many times have you yourself sought a new role because you wanted a fresh challenge? And are we as the organisation providing those fresh challenges to our people? Identifying skill gaps on an individual and company level can be time consuming, can be a big task. Creating, competency frameworks to base these skill gaps on is, on the one hand, one of the biggest challenges that, us here at Digits, when we speak to our clients and customers, they share that creating those competency frameworks in the first place can be the biggest barrier they have to getting into the skills gap analysis piece that needs to follow. And I guess, knowing who needs training is only the first step. Delivering the right training at the right time in the right format adds another layer of complexity. But since we know that, watching online videos is now the preferred method of learning for those aged 18 to 54, closely followed by online learning courses, I guess, could technology hold the key to all of this? And solving these challenges, can't be the sole responsibility of a single department. HR and L&D teams have unique objectives and insights into their remits. Joining these two functions together will shape the people strategy of tomorrow. It's so important HR and L&D are working hand in hand on this. But they'll need the help of the fourth point on your screen, the right technology. And digital learning technology provides opportunities for personalization, micro learning, and mobile learning, as well as tools to help people and teams refine and develop their overall training and skills strategy. So now we have a better understanding of how L&D strategies are changing. Let's move on to consider how HR and L&D teams can work more closely in achieving a watertight skills strategy and how the right technology can make all of that possible. So let's look at the kind of 6 reasons why HR and L&D must work together. So reason number one, you'll retain and attract top talent. Buying talent is unsustainable right now. It's so competitive, and it's only going to become harder in the months and years ahead. HR teams can provide the competency frameworks needed for skills gaps analysis. And you can uncover a literal, world of possibilities here, identifying underutilized strengths and skills in your existing workforce, highlighting critical skill gaps in the short and long term, develop robust succession plans to ensure continuity regardless of the economic climate, and create a skills development plan that allows your top talent to progress their careers within your organization without ever needing to look elsewhere. You'll reduce talent management costs, spending a fortune hiring, training, and paying, top dollar for key positions. Rather than putting a proverbial plaster over the problem, a collaboration between HR and L&D teams can get to the root cause of those issues. HR can make more strategic hires to move the organization closer to its key objectives, rather than frantically hiring to plug vital roles. L&D can use HR provided insights to shape skills development plans, and both teams can work together to provide tangible career development opportunities to newly upskilled and cross-skilled employees. Number 3, you'll achieve your strategic goals. We briefly touched on this in the previous point. By eliminating the hiring crisis, you can free up valuable time within your team to formulate better plans to align your people with your business goals. A clear career pathway with real development opportunities to advance colleagues' careers is one of the most reliable ways to encourage your employees to develop their skills and put them to use where they're needed within your organization. Your employees will be happier. Employees want to feel valued. They want the chance to shape their careers without needing to look outside of your organization. Providing these opportunities to learn and grow and providing real career maps not only fosters great workplace culture, but also enhances employee happiness. Happy employees are more conductive, they're more willing to help and build, your great employer brand, demonstrating, innovation, which can really move you closer to your strategic goals. And of course, the most important thing, it helps them stay within your organization for longer. Your employee brand will improve. People speak to each other, to other businesses, to friends. Are you making sure that they are saying something good about your organization? Improving career prospects for your employees will enhance engagement and create better employee experience. While this is a less tangible metric, it's worth an awful lot. You'll benefit from a competitive edge. It goes without saying that you're only as good as the people that you have, and more innovation, skills, more innovative thinking, more motivated employees equals a better product or service offering. By proactively developing your people and their abilities, you can place yourself in pole position to outperform competitors. This all, sounds great in theory. Realizing these benefits will absolutely require the right technology. Let's take a look at the role of tech in aligning your HR and L&D teams and how it can help you identify and plug skill gaps across your organization. So I'm going to hand over now to discuss the technology in the role of all of this. I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Andrea, who will talk to you further about that.
Great. Thanks for that, Bradley. So lots of really interesting insights there to kind of sort of set the scene a little bit about, what the sort of importance is of focusing on that skills gap, skills areas. But thinking about the technology, having the right technology is going to be really crucial in making or breaking that skills strategy. It very much is a critical component that forms the foundation of every aspect of your skills plans. So this could be anything from identifying those skills gaps to recommending learning to the right employees at the right time. And then, of course, the all-important monitoring their development and tracking that progress. So an LMS with the skills gap analysis functionality can really leverage those competency frameworks to intelligently identify the skills your people need to develop, where there might be skill gaps are, but also underutilized skills, which is just as important, and where you then need to focus on improving skills moving forward across your workforce. not only does the right LMS help you to bridge that skills gap, but it also expertly bridges the gap between HR and L&D. So as we've seen, that it's really important to have that collaboration in place. Having that sort of data transparency, that access, and more importantly, the relevance of learning are some of the key features of a modern LMS that can really help inform and shape those skill strategies more effectively. The ability then also to integrate your LMS with other key software, including your HR system, can ensure that data integrity is key across every stage of that employee life cycle. So we're going to have a look at a few more of these bits a little bit more closely now. So how can a modern LMS help? Well, not only will a good LMS provide a great user experience in terms of functionality and design, that's kind of a given these days, but it also provides that better employee experience overall. So integrating your LMS with your HR software, it can help you provide incredible insights that help shape how you upskill and promote your employees. But it can also allow that frictionless experience. So single sign-on means that there are fewer barriers to success for employees. They can simply log on and get to all those sort of training opportunities that you've made available to them straight away. We hear a lot of talk about sort of creating a learning culture, so by embedding it into the everyday or into the flow of work. So you've probably heard that sort of term quite often lately. So by making learning fun and functional, by sort of making that access easy to sort of both voluntary training as well as mandatory, and rewarding those skill seekers that sort of Bradley was referring to before. You can be using things like gamification techniques, which include badges, leaderboards, rewards, that can then sort of invoke a healthy sense of competition, but also enhance learner skills and provide that sort of motivation that some learners might need. Think about those levels of expertise that you have across your organization as well. So how can you share that through social learning interventions, fostering those peer-to-peer connections based on mutual interests, as well as maybe providing coaching and mentoring opportunities, will allow your subject matter experts to share that knowledge with their fellow employees and make sure that there is that wealth of exchange across the entire workforce. Having unparalleled data and insights provided by the sophisticated reporting and analytics functionality can also help you assess the success of your training programs. This will help you make more informed decisions on future learning activities, but also provide that really meaningful information to your C-suite who are looking to, for more demonstrable ROI, looking at that impact of learning and looking at how this is actually benefiting your organization moving forward. And also, I mean, I speak with clients every day. So a lot of the HR practitioners I've spoken to have mentioned how cumbersome competency frameworks can be. They are a bit of a beast to set up, but they're so powerful once they're in place. So rather than depending on disjointed or clunky sort of legacy systems, an LMS can allow you to sort of upload those documents so you can really kind of make them quite powerful and use them to shape those skills development plans. It kind of does the heavy lifting for you, essentially. So it can help you identify easily which skills are abundant, which perhaps are lacking, and you can then start to be drilling that down on, by an individual, across a team, or even across your organization, just to kind of see where the main priorities might need to lie. And by having those sort of tools at your fingertips can then free up all that time that you might normally be spending on that admin of actually trying to dissect that information to really focus on the more important task, which is bridging those skill gaps and looking at the strategy moving forward. So an LMS can, obviously be used as a standalone product, but it can also be used in conjunction with your existing people software. So some of the most popular integrations with LMSs can often be, typically with your HR system, as well as communication tools like Teams and other systems across the organization. So in terms of those sort of integrations, so having that linked up with your HR system is going to be critical for the user data accuracy. So being able to automatically set up profiles in your LMS, manage your audiences via their, training groups, their roles, their business functions, so that they get access to the right training at the right time. But also having a seamless user experience across your communication tools like Teams or Zoom, so you can be setting up virtual workshops easily. You can, be marking attendance automatically, those kinds of things that save a bit of time. But it's not just about HR software and communication tools that's critical when it comes to integrations. Your organization will potentially have a wide-ranging ecosystem of platforms, technology platforms and services that can really benefit from integrating with your LMS. So these could include things like MI tools such as Power BI, so referring back to that sort of ROI point, Have a think about calibrating some of your training results and data with other business metrics. That could be customer NPS scores, it could be quality metrics, it could be sales results, and so on, to see how impactful that training is and to really consistently sort of reinforce the value of the training. You can also think about linking up with your Active Directory to facilitate seamless, secure logins and data feeds. So you're just continually adding that layer of quality to the employee experience as well. Okay. And then in terms of, sort of demonstrating that value of learning, that is going to be really critical and the sort of ongoing. So obviously there's a big piece when you're looking at any sort of new systems and sort of, looking at putting that investment in place. So kind of measuring that ROI, sort of making the case for why this is valuable. But measuring the metrics that matter once you've got solutions in place is critical. So that could be looking at everything from engagement rates. Are my employees actually engaging with this? Are they embracing the learning? Are they getting value out of what we're putting out there, both in terms of the delivery of the learning, but the learning itself? You can be looking at completion rates, you can be looking at scores, progression, and that kind of thing as well. So there's lots of metrics in there that, it's going to be up to you kind of to decide which ones are going to be most important for your business. Having more comprehensive data has the power then to inform those strategic decisions. It kind of goes without saying that, but I think it's useful to remind us of how powerful having that data at your fingertips is, not only just to kind of support your learners across the organization, but also to demonstrate that return on investment, which we've seen time and time and again can be a bit of a blocker for L&D teams who they know the value of having a good learning suite in, whether in content, but it's kind of convincing the business to get that investment. So having that data to kind of back you up is going to be really key. And then finally, just having an array of robust data can, like we say, kind of help prove that worth of learning. So highlighting that retention, increasing productivity amongst your employees, and making sure that that learning is landing and being impactful to deliver on your business objectives moving forward. So data is obviously a big key thing, and that's it's an area that can help sort of L&D and HR teams work collaboratively to deliver on those sort of business goals. But if we return back to the concept of the competency frameworks that we were talking about earlier as well, this is another tool obviously that's going to help identify those skill gaps analyses, the skill gaps, and do that analysis to understand where further development might be needing. So are you already using those frameworks? If not, there are some really compelling reasons to use them. So they can be crucial in helping your organization to identify those skill gaps and uncover those hidden talents, like we've mentioned before. These can also then help to shape and inform your skills development strategy, which can lead into all those wonderful things that Bradley was talking about earlier in terms of talent retention, talent attraction, motivation, productivity, all that great stuff that can come out of those development plans. It can help you to mobilize your talent as well during difficult times, such as restructures. And look, elephant in the room, we're all, a lot of organizations are going through this at the moment within the current climate. So, restructures are becoming more and more common, but you've still got a job to do, you've still got a business to run. So how can you redeploy those skills across your workforce and still give people opportunity to progress their careers within your organization? So by identifying staff with those transferable skills that could be redeployed to alternative roles can actually open up opportunities in challenging times. Those frameworks can also help you to retain that top talent by creating clear career maps, like we talked about earlier, and through delivering more relevant and timely training. So giving employees that sort of vision of where they can progress within your organization will give them the sort of motivation to kind of continue with you, to stay loyal, to kind of build their skills with you, and work towards sort of greater goals in their time with your company. So, like I said before, competency frameworks are quite a beast. So how do you go about creating them? Excuse me. They need to be guided by business objectives first and foremost, and then used as the foundation of conducting those skills gap analyses. Your LMS's role can also help you gather and analyze the data you generate through these exercises. Excuse me for one moment. A competency framework, so what exactly is it? It broadly describes performance excellence within an organization. These frameworks will usually include specific competencies that are applied to a variety of roles. And depending on what's relevant for your organization, these frameworks can be based on different types of competencies, which could include core, common, role-specific, leadership, and meta competencies. So what's right for your organization and the specific functions within your business will, of course, vary. So it's kind of up to you to make these relevant to your context. You can see on the screen there's a short link there to one of the CIPD resources. So that's a good starting point if you haven't really thought about, you know, building the frameworks, just to give you a bit of an idea of where to start and how to start building those. Okay. So how can then technology help you leverage those competency frameworks? So using an LMS such as what we have in Digits here, it has an inbuilt skills analysis tool that can help you identify those skill gaps to enable talent retention in a competitive labour market. You can create really clear competency frameworks for key roles, a big project in itself like we've talked about, but a vital foundation for analysing skills and competencies across your organisation. There's a variety of tools there to assess those skill gaps, which include 180 and 360 views. So you then get an objective view of where the skill gaps and talents lie, as well as, you know, it provides a bit of a conversation starter for those kind of reviews, one-to-one meetings that a person might have with their manager. The really kind of powerful bit is when you can start connecting this to training interventions to facilitate in-role development. So this is where you can sort of highlight where their skill gaps are, use the LMS to kind of automatically recommend some of those training interventions, and then use that not even just for in-role development, but it could be for succession planning. So give someone the framework for the next step up in their career, see which areas they're strong in, see which areas they might need to work on, and that then starts to form the basis of their development plan to ready themselves for that next step in their career. But equally, on the flip side, it could be used for a performance improvement plan as well. So it gives just really nice, tangible, objective results that can, you know, sort of help an employee understand where they need to improve, what's the next steps for them, and what kind of training is going to be most relevant to help them to get where they need to be. By comparing these analyses periodically to track development, whether that be quarterly, annually, depending on the pace of your business and requirements, can give you that sort of ongoing view of you know, how an employee is progressing, and helps them to take a bit of ownership of their learning as well. So if we just have a very quick example, one of our customers, the Telegraph, has used this skills analysis previously. So they created a sort of a unique competency tool that enabled the Telegraph to assess their employee skills and recommend learning for career development based on that competency framework. So after piloting their new tool, the Telegraph asked the apprentices to rate their experience of Career Builder overall, and they received really positive feedback. So there was a real engagement from the get-go, because the apprentices could see the value of the information that they were getting as a result of participating in this exercise. The feature that enabled learners to request reviews and gain feedback from their colleagues for either 180 or 360 reviews was particularly valuable, with 80% saying that the career insights were applicable to their day-to-day job. So having that relevance was so key as part of that exercise. We've got a short sort of link there. So if you want to read more about the Telegraph's experience with the Digits tool, you can read more there. And we've got various other case studies on that link as well. So any good LMS will also have an important role to play in your career mapping and succession planning activities. So we've talked about that briefly, of, you know, giving those sort of competency frameworks for that next step up, showing where the gaps are. So anything you can do to empower your employees to explore those progression pathways will really help increase that staff retention and create sort of long-standing careers within your organization. So having an LMS that's linked to your skills analysis tool and the outputs makes it really easy for the employees then to engage with relevant training, but also for those HR and L&D teams to collaborate on succession planning and have the data at their fingertips to help them make those right decisions for what support is needed. So we've gone into a lot of detail about how technology can help HR and L&Ds create skill strategies that future-proof their organizations. The question now is, do you have the right LMS in place to support these activities and help you achieve your goals? Here are some of the prompts to think about when considering if your system is right for you. So does it push out engaging relevant learning at the right time to the right people? Can it help you report on that tangible activity and data to inform your next steps and strategy easily? Automation is key, so can it automate a lot of processes and notifications to help reduce admin and provide more time for those proactive tasks? And can it also highlight areas for development to inform talent retention and succession planning strategies? The ability to provide to future-proof your workforce to weather those ongoing changes is also critical. So is your LMS flexible enough to enable you to do that? Can it help your employees explore new opportunities as and when they need to? And ultimately, does it motivate your people to learn? If the answer to one or more of these questions is no, then it might be time to explore a different solution. Remember, not only do you want to find the right platform, you also need to find the right vendor to work with. Do they understand your skills development needs and your organization and your goals? Will they work with you to bring your vision to life and realize that to deliver the best impact for your employees? If you need more help deciding if it's time to switch your LMS, download our free guide using the address on the screen. It's also available on the webinar control panel. And I'm now going to hand back to Catherine now for a quick recap. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Andrea. That's great. Let me just offer up that recap. So just want to go over a couple of the key points because we've covered a lot of ground in the past 40 minutes. Now is the time, though, if you have questions for our experts, send them in using the control panel on your screen, and we'll get to those in a moment once I've just run through this slide. So essentially, the point we're arguing today is that there's never been a more important time for HR and L&D teams to work together collaboratively. We've seen that people strategies have evolved. They are less focused on compliance and more about value-added learning. The shift to a digital-first approach to learning is well and truly underway, and there's no signs of it slowing down. There's also a greater focus on talent retention and recruitment. The benefits of HR and L&D teams working collaboratively to develop skills required for the future of work are far-reaching. Great technology, we believe, will underpin this successful collaboration. These include things like integrations to boost efficiency, and skills gap analysis tools are especially critical. Be honest with yourself. Is your LMS working with you or against you? That's the question you need to think about today. For more insight from Digits about skills gaps and how to plug them, you can download the full report, which covers the things we've spoken about today in more detail, using the address on your screen now, which is bit.ly/digitskills. It's also available in the control panel. After this webinar, we'll send out a recording of the broadcast, and that email will also have all of the short links that we've referred to today, so you can go back and download any of the guides that we've talked about or access the case studies, for example. So that's all of our slides for today. Thank you for being so attentive. It's now time to send your questions in if you have any for Bradley and Andrea, who I'm hoping will join me back on screen any moment now. Don't leave me hanging. Come back. There you are. Okay, good for you. So thank you for that, everybody. So we'll just wait and see if anyone sends in any immediate questions. I mean, we've kind of covered a lot of ground today, and it's a big challenge for organisations that haven't really started looking at skills strategies. Bradley, as a talent professional, like what's the starting point for all of this if you've got nothing in place yet and you don't have an understanding of what your individual skills or team skills are like?
I think the number one starting place is do you understand your organization's key objectives over the next 12 to 24 months? Because without that understanding, you kind of don't know what direction to start going in. So first and foremost, what are the key objectives? What's the organization trying to achieve? And then it's getting out and doing that analysis of every role within the organization, talking to people, managers, really getting a thorough understanding of, based on those key objectives, is everyone in my organization equipped with the skills, knowledge, behaviors for the organization to go and achieve those key objectives? And that's, for me, that's kind of the starting point, because otherwise there's so many different frameworks, there's so many different competencies that you could pick, but it's about understanding where your organization's at before you can start applying the appropriate skills framework and competency framework for your business.
And given that organizations can be so large and so complex, and this type of project takes a lot of time and energy, is there a case for doing like a pilot and starting small and working within like a specific team or department, or is it something that really needs to be done on a broader basis?
I've seen both approaches work. And I think that's going to be very contingent on what comes back once you've done that analysis of your business. So you may well find that actually broadly all of your teams are in a really good place, and that might give you the confidence to kind of go more company-wide. You may also find that there's pockets, there might be particular pockets where there's challenge, and that maybe is a test case to go, right, do we start with those pockets first and get something that's working, because that's where the more urgent need is. I guess the challenge is if you look across your organization and the whole thing is the particular challenge, that may then start to be, well, where do I start with this? And, you know, I'm always in favor of, if you've got a big task on your hands, break that down into smaller manageable chunks and maybe start with a pilot in one particular team, demonstrate that approach works before then getting the buy-in to gain that commitment from other teams.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's always a bit daunting to have a big project that seems insurmountable. When you break it down, you can kind of chip away at it over time. So Andrew, we talked a bit about the skills tool in Digits LMS and how it helps people to understand what skills are present. And the next stage for that would obviously be plugging those skills gap and recommending content and perhaps specific content journeys. Can you talk about how Digits LMS can assist with that aspect of plugging the skills gap? So moving on from, we have an understanding of what the gaps are, and now let's actually start to address it.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, obviously there's tools there that we can, do that assessment first, and it is about, sort of identifying where the gaps are. You can then curate content that will flag up to the learner in line with those skills gaps as a kind of starting point. But having things like a fully sort of detailed report that the learner can then take in with their, to their manager for one-to-one conversations, they can then work together to put together a sort of development plan in other areas. And there's a variety of tools in there that can help them do that. It's not just about going off and doing some e-learning, but it could be about how they're applying that learning in their role. So doing some mentoring and coaching, capturing those conversations, doing some on-the-job observations, capturing those that sort of feedback and sort of progression on that. So it really is kind of a starting point for those conversations that should be fed into the wider sort of performance and talent management sort of process that the learner and their manager would work through.
Yeah. And you're talking a bit about the role of the manager there. Bradley, like, how can we go about getting manager buy-in to having these skills and performance conversations? Because that's the link between a talent and people and L&D team and actually making an impact for the individual or the team on the ground.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, Catherine. And I guess it's understanding what's in it for the manager, what's in it for them. And any line manager, one of their biggest headaches is when people leave their team and they've got to re-recruit, right? So how can we demonstrate that taking a proactive approach to skills development and career development will minimize the impact of people wanting to leave their team and then having to go through that re-recruitment headache? There's a big what's in it for them in that, because we all know once someone leaves, the pressure that then puts on the wider team until we fill that vacancy. And at the moment, the facts are it's not easy to fill that vacancy. So that pressure can happen, can sustain itself over quite a long period of time if we don't fill it. So an investment to prevent that from happening in the first place is well worthwhile. And I think, one of the things I wanted to add to the conversation, Catherine, was that it's also thinking more holistically about this as well. So it's not just about the colleagues that currently work in your business and what can we do more of to improve their skills. It's how can we apply these skills and competency frameworks to the process of recruiting new employees as well. So when we do recruit them, we already understand what percentage fit their skill set is for our business. And we also understand where the gaps are. So quite quickly, we can pull together a real nice personal development plan as part of their onboarding that really makes them feel valued as soon as they start within the organization and kind of increases that speed to competency. So these frameworks are not just useful for the purpose of existing colleagues, they can equally be applied to the talent acquisition strategy and how are we recruiting the right people with the right skills to come in and then supporting them when they do come in. So it's far reaching a project like this, and there's so many benefits to be had by embarking upon it.
And it would also feed into succession planning projects as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's how what's your mechanism for identifying that talent bench and making sure that talent bench has got the right skill set, that when it is required to move into those roles, the skills already exist and it's really easy to move that talent in. So it really is that whole employee cycle of find, develop, keep. It kind of straddles all three of those key areas.
And I think even thinking about that sort of data piece as well, so leveraging those statistics, so looking at, we've got X number of employees who started us, we've got X percentage of these have progressed into their careers, they've been with us 4 or 5 years plus, have had 2 different roles, that kind of, that information is stuff that you can start to feed into your sort of recruitment strategies, have that on your careers site, just to really put some tangible metrics against that development opportunity. The proof's in the pudding, to say, here's some of our longest standing employees and the journey that they've taken as a result of this program. So, and that's really powerful, because so many people are looking for those development opportunities when they're looking for a new role as well.
And kind of one of the layers that we haven't, sorry Bradley, go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay, no, I was just going to say, just to add to that as well, in terms of thinking about skills from a different aspect, many colleagues that I speak with and peers that I speak with, DE&I strategies are becoming more of an integral part of people teams' HR functions. And actually the investment in a skills framework can really complement your DE&I strategy, because it starts to look at what colleagues can bring and what skills they have, rather than other aspects that then all the unconscious biases start to kick in around who's suitable for a role and who isn't. The kind of, if you can embed this, the skills start to speak for themselves, and all of a sudden it can create opportunities for people where previously they may have been overlooked or they may not have been considered, because their skills stand in their own merit. So it really is complementary to other strategies that are really important to the people team as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, especially when you're thinking about assessing candidate skills and you sort of combine that with blind recruitment, then you're starting to really suss out the right people to be interviewing and progressing through your recruitment process, rather than the people that you might have assumed would be the right people to progress, like because of those things that you mentioned.
Absolutely, and if there's been plenty of instances, we found this ourselves recently, where if you look at someone's CV based on their experience, they may not seem to be suitable for the role. But the minute you put them through a skills analysis tool and you really understand the skills they have, what you haven't seen is that actually the jobs they've had, although they don't seem relevant, have equipped them with the skills they need to be successful. But we've had instances where hiring managers may not have considered that individual, but now all of a sudden you focus on skills, they become a credible candidate. And anything like that at the moment in this particular talent marketplace that we're in is going to be beneficial, just to open up the pool of candidates that could be suitable. And those candidates, by the way, could be internal as well as external when we're talking about career development, etc. So it's so much more far-reaching than some of the points we've covered today.
And the question that I was going to ask is something that we pretty much haven't talked about today, is about remote and hybrid working, because it's kind of a given now that many companies work with people who, they're individuals who are not working on site all the time. Does that not having the visibility of people in the office or at a particular site make it more important that we have visibility of data about them, so that we can understand that network of people within an organisation?
Yeah, Andrew, do you want to take that one, or do you want me to? I'm happy to take it.
Don't all rush to answer.
Sorry, can you just repeat the last bit about?
Yeah, I just mean, like, because we're not visibly interacting with people every day, so like, is it more important that we do these kind of tasks and these projects to understand the skills, so that we may not be seeing the skills evident in day-to-day working because we're working through Teams calls or through Zoom, we're not side by side with somebody?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's where the sort of digital space can obviously help with that, to kind of highlight, sort of untapped skills, because yeah, you're not sitting next to someone in a desk and hearing the conversations, or looking at how they approach a project. So I think it is quite vital to leverage some of those tools to make sure that there is that visibility both across office-based workers and remote workers, so that it's a level playing field really across all employees. Because I think there is a concern about some employees, if I adopt a remote only, it's a bit about out of sight, out of mind mentality, and it needs to be processes and methodologies in place to give them that assurance that they'll get almost equal treatment by being a remote employee. They'll have the same level of learning opportunities, the same level of development opportunities, and there's kind of tools and processes in place to enable that visibility for that to happen.
Okay, great. So we didn't get any questions. I hope that means we've answered them all, or maybe you've just covered so much that you need a bit of thinking time, which is fine. So we'll just move on to the wrap up. So thanks everyone for attending today and giving us your attention. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Bradley and Andrea, for sharing your expertise. We've learned an awful lot today, so that's awesome. Thank you so much. If you want to find out more about Digit LMS, you can opt in using the exit survey you'll see on your screen after this broadcast ends, or you can drop Andrea a line directly. Her email address is on the screen now. That feedback survey will ask you also just for a little bit of feedback about how we've done today. If you enjoyed the webinar, if there are other things you'd like to see from us, we are always appreciative of any feedback that you can offer us there. Our next webinar is on Tuesday, the 17th of January, where we'll be looking at how to choose an LMS. So if you are in the market for a new LMS, or you think you might be switching LMS providers soon, or even choosing your first LMS, you won't want to miss that one. And we'll be sharing hints and tips for choosing the right solution for your organisation. So it just remains for me today. Thank you once again for joining us. Thank you, Bradley and Andrea. We hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye.
Great. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.